Peabody Award for 2003 goes to one of television's preeminent journalists. His documentaries and series have explored issues vital to our democracy. He's challenged easy ideas and presented programs on topics often overlooked or ignored, or seen by others as simply too controversial. His work stands as a measure of television's role in our society. For his many contributions, an individual Peabody Award goes to Bill Moyers.
We all have lived a life that had a purpose.
When you really see what life is, it's a lot of protoplasm with an urge to reproduce and continue in being.
Not true. That's not true.
How did you manage to sit there day after day and hear these stories of terrible things that people had been doing?
The scandal, what went on?
Ronald Reagan.
Who knew? And who was actually responsible?
We're conducting a vast toxicologic experiment, and we're using our children as the experimental animals.
We have to rely on the media to at least analyze what the corporations are doing, and the media don't do that. How do we level the playing field?
I don't know.
For now, I'm Bill Moyers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Moyers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for this award. I was told to take 33 seconds to sum up 33 years in broadcasting, but it's been a long life for a half-minute swan song. Furthermore, the Human Center for Media and Democracy, which I head as president, was the sole funder of Atlantic Public Radio Media, Transom organization, the first website to win a Peabody. We've also been a major funder for Chuck Lewis and the Center for Public Integrity, and a funder for some of Stanley Nelson's work, and occasionally for Frontline. So maybe I have another 30 seconds coming this evening. I ask for your indulgence. Besides Ron Nesson, when he said they would not turn up the orchestra, I said I'm tone deaf anyway. I also have permission from Tom Johnson, former president of CNN, publisher of the Los Angeles Times and the Dallas Times-Herald, a graduate of this University of Georgia, and 40 years ago, at the age of 23, my deputy press secretary at the White House. I was 30 and needed some youth, and Tom provided it. Unfortunately, our credibility was so bad we couldn't believe our own leaks. We decided, therefore, to go into journalism. Unfortunately, we didn't do much for the credibility of journalism either. So Ron Nesson came along, was press secretary for Gerald Ford, lifted the credibility of the White House, and then came into journalism and lifted journalism's credibility too. So I ask your indulgence for 2 minutes. As I told Horace Newcomb when he called with the news, an award like this makes me uncomfortable. Broadcast journalism is such a collaborative medium. It seems unfair to single out for recognition the person on camera when so many others have done the heavy lifting. Pull back for a wide shot, and you find me standing on their shoulders. I've had a good and long run. I can't imagine having made my living any other way. But I have never fooled myself about how it happens. The good ideas were only occasionally mine. I am certain God made producers before she made little green apples. I stand in awe of researchers who understand that news is what people want to keep hidden. Everything else is publicity. Editors work miracles. They did on the Steenbeck when I started, and they do so now on the Avid. I've known camera and sound crews as careful as surgeons, as tough as Marines, as brave as astronauts. Without such people, I would have been just another voice in the wilderness. And wilderness is all there would be without sympathetic executives, controllers, and unit managers. We don't talk enough about their role or the role of owners. It all comes down to what owners allow to happen. Some commission propaganda and call it journalism. Others commission promotion and call it news. I was lucky in my 2 stints at CBS to work for owners who know this is an industry, but tolerated journalists who consider it a calling. But I've been luckier still to spend most of these 33 years in public broadcasting. Every president of PBS has been a good friend and kindred spirit, from Hartford Gunn and Larry Grossman to Bruce Christensen, Irvin Duggan, and now Pat Mitchell, whose idea it was to produce our weekly series Now. I could not have had a more nurturing professional home than at WNET, our flagship station here in New York, led for years by John J. Island and since then by Bill Baker. Every one of those public broadcasting owners, if you will, took heat because of my work, but they never melted. Such a community of camaraderie, freedom, and purpose I could not have imagined when I showed up at 10 Columbus Circle in the fall of 1971, knowing nothing about television except how to move the rabbit ears. So many taught me so much. Bill Coben, who hired me, who's here today. Jack Samuth, my first director. Jerry Tubin, Bob Kotlowitz, Fred Friendly. Before she went off to be dean of the Columbia School of Journalism, Joan Connor was my executive producer at the founding of our independent production company 17 years ago. Without Joan and Al, there would have been no Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth. At our side was a young woman just recently out of Yale, Judy Doctoroff, now our executive vice president. Were she not so wholly committed to public service journalism and so selflessly devoted to our work and her family, she would be running any station, company, or network in America. She has been with me now longer than any other person in my career, except, of course, for one, except for Judith. I cannot imagine breathing without Judith Davidson Moyers. She's president of our company, the co-creator and co-editor of all we do, a principled journalist with a sure touch, and a manager par excellence. We married 50 years ago in our junior year at the University of Texas. We married without redemption. As Charlotte Bronte said of Alfred, we intended to be married this way almost from the first. We never meant to be spliced in the humdrum way of other people. I have had many kindred spirits in this work and several kindred souls. But Judith is the singular kindred force who has held it and me together. Everything we do bears her mark, and in a just and fair world, this Peabody would bear her name too. I owe so much to so many. To my colleagues at Now, John Seiseloff, Felice Firestone, Diane Warner, Rebecca Wharton. To those foundations that guaranteed my independence, for we have raised every penny of every production we have mounted. And especially to Mutual of America Life Insurance Company, my sole corporate underwriter, whose president and CEO, Tom Moran, is here today. I cannot tell you the missiles that Mutual has received from others in the investor and capitalist class who believe my work and Now is too sharp and skeptical. But Tom Moran believes that because we journalists are free, we have a moral obligation to try to help capitalism save itself from excess and democracy from inertia. And in all of these years, despite what I know to be a barrage of criticism from his co-members of the ruling class, Tom has never once called or sent a message saying, whoa. With such a host of colleagues across these decades, there have been so many exhilarating moments that my hard times now seem as remote and irrelevant as ancient ruins. And I take my leave as rich in memories as Midas was in gold. This occasion and your award add immeasurably to the storehouse. Peabody Awards do a great service to journalism by taking it seriously. I've learned not to claim too much for my craft, but I don't want to claim too little either. In recent weeks, and the example of Seymour Hersh and the broadcasting of those pictures by 60 Minutes too, we have been reminded of the difference journalism can make to democracy. The character Tom Johnson, Ron Nessen, and I know from our own experience inside government that the character in Tom Stoppard's play Night and Day, the news photographer, got it right when he said, "People do terrible things to each other, but it's worse in the places where everybody is kept in the dark." Thank you for this award. Thank you for this day. Thank you for your recognition.